Yeah, man. Greetings, Rastafari, Hail Emperor the King Selassie the First, the perfect balance Empress Menin. This is first man for Rastafari Indigenous Village, recognizing, accepting, promoting Lion Voice. Yes, the voice of Rastafari, speaking about Rastafari, educating Rastafari, preserving, protecting Rastafari. Give thanks.
Aye, Rastafari, mighty.
The fittest of the fittest shall survive. My people, open your eyes. Wake up. Blessed love, this is Queen Omega, representing for all lions and lionesses. With the lion's voice, we come to tell our story. Rastafari, live it. Hey, the lion's voice, Rastafari.
Blessed love, this is Rashila representing for the lion's voice. Seeing? Yeah, man. Keep it locked right there, sir. On to Zion we go. Lion voice don't move slow, no. Rastafari rules and reigns, and we're going where the blessings flow. Keep it locked right there, sir. Saying? Rashila said that. Lion's voice.
I'm Nana Farika. The time has come for the lioness to tell her story from her viewpoint and tell the world who Queen Omega is. This is the lion's voice.
Greetings, this is Junior Martin of Bob Martin and the Wailers. The time has come for the lion to tell its story. And we have here the lion voice. So listen in and get nourishment for the stomach and for the head cup. Jah,
Rastafari. Give thanks.
Give thanks and praise every time.
Great honor, great honor.
What are you waiting for? Come together, calling from near and far. Know who you are. What are you waiting for? Rally up, it takes the dust. What are you waiting for? Ancestors paved the way for us. Yes, I am Ketis Oyonde, asking, what are you waiting for to come together? The time has come for the lions to tell our own story. This is the lion's voice.
It's AWTITUDE representing for Lion's Voice. Yes, massive. This is the time for I and I, the lion them to tell I and I story, our story. Yes, and we reign and rule like this. Reign and rule, yeah. Selassie, I reign and rule. You can't take the lion vibes, people. If you no fool, cause we know Selassie reign and rule. Reign and rule. Selassie, I reign and rule. Queen Omega drop them in the fire, pull from them, no Queen Omega, she reign and rule. Royal Kushite, ancient essence, Emperor Selassie in a majestical presence, flash of all sevens, projecting through I and I events. We sing a song for the king, we bring joy and blessing and overstanding, yeah. We hear Jah every day. Hey. Reign and rule, yeah. Selassie, reign and rule. Yes, I lion vibes, Selassie, reign and rule. Attitude say that. Boondocks, black organization of noble diplomats optimizing expressions to the world. Till the world, till the end.
Well, lion voice, tell them that's the people first choice. Lion voice, make the lioness them feel nice. Lion voice, with the lion cubs we sacrifice. Lion voice, got to show the people them the life. Lion voice.
Yeah. Rastafari. Emperor Haile Selassie the First. Tell the people about Empress Menin.
Well, even if the stars they fall and the moon turn into blood, but to the coming war we stand tall. I will shower you with my love. And even when the people start ball, cause they see the city streets them flood, but like the hurricane blow down their wall, I'll be by your side and me now but think I found the love of a lifetime. I love you every day lifeline. It seems like the world is upside down. I will never hide, I'd rather stand my ground. Lion of Judah blessed with the triple crown. Can't come fool I with no circus clown. Now fear no hurricane or the cyclone. Respect for Mama Earth with that embedded on me bone. That's why I will never leave you alone. Protect you from harm when the alarm sound. So even when the stars they fall and the moon turn into blood, to the coming war we stand tall. I will shower you with my love. And even when the people start fall, when they see their city streets them flood, when the hurricane blow down our wall, I'll be by your side and me not budge. Think I found the love of a lifetime. I love you every day or the night time. The Almighty, I made your light shine, and unto I, your light was a lifeline. I think I found the love of a lifetime. I love you every day or the night time. The Almighty, I made your light shine, and unto I, your love was a lifeline. They say hurt people, maybe that's why Babylon them so evil. Maybe Babylon abused as a child.
Greetings in that divine name of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I. Glory and honor in the name of his chosen queen, Empress Waziri Menen. My name is Kwasi Bansu, aka DejazmatchKwasi, aka Kwasi, aka the Reading Ras, aka the Pan-African Happy Man, creative industry attorney. I'm an author, I'm an artist, I'm an actionist, and right now I am the host of Lion Voice Live. Welcome to Lion Voice Live, and welcome to the Lion Voice Network, where the lions are telling our own story. Tonight, we have an extra special episode. We are going into our Pan-African network to bring forward a history. This is about the lions telling our own story, and we're gonna get the story of two dynamic black women tonight. One, Mama Adwoa Asante, who I've known since I was a student at Howard University. Almost 30 years I was contemplating as a young virgin, chatting within the Nyabingi house here in Washington, D.C. There was a elder named Rasai Biju, one of our master chefs, who was there from Trinidad, and his queen was the powerful queen mother that we'll be talking to tonight. So, I knew her children when they were babies. And now they're all adult, big people going to college and all these things. So, when you live long enough, you get to see the evolution of time. So I'm looking forward to this reasoning. So we're going to find out about her life and her journey as a Pan-African woman. But we also, extra special treat, she has been doing a one-woman show about Harriet Tubman. She puts herself as Mama Harriet, full costume, acting, everything, and she gives the story of Harriet Tubman. So we're going to find out why she chose Harriet Tubman, and we're also going to find out more history about Harriet Tubman tonight as well, because we hear about Harriet Tubman, Araminta, as she was also known, but she was a mystic woman, African, powerful African woman. So we don't really hear that full story. And we're an educational platform. So, of course, As a Rastafari Pan-African platform, we want to hear the story of our Queen Mothers. We have the most content of Rastafari woman right now, right here on the internet. You can check our catalog. We do have a Rastafari woman playlist as well as a Pan-African playlist. So we don't just wait till March to bring forward the Queen Omega energy. And all March we do all Rastafari women all month, and then we culminate in the Empress Menen panel. So we'll do that again. March coming up so rapidly. I tell you, the time is just flying. The Earth is rotating faster on its axis. Something is happening, but time is moving at lightning speed. 2025 gone. You know what I mean? So whatever you had planned, you know what I mean? If it's not done now, we just know you have to move it to 2026 because the year has come and gone in a flash. Twinkling of an eye was here, now it's no more. So we give thanks to be a witness to the uprising. We are here in perilous times. A war armada floating in the Caribbean. We saw that Venezuela just cut off oil to Trinidad, which is going to have a significant impact on Trinidad's economy. And we've been saying here for some time that hard times are ahead, difficult days are ahead, and that we all must be going into our preparation mode, storing food, learning skills, vital skills, and preparing for the breakdown of the societies in which we reside. As the pieces move on the geopolitical chessboard, it's usually the innocent that bear the burden. The wealthy people have the means to go into their bunker, go into their cave, fly to another country, escape. It's the middle class and the poor people who bear the burden of war, of pandemic, of instability. And we saw that during COVID, where the wealthy people were having their parties and everything nice, no mask. And then when you look at the population, you know what I mean, you saw complete lockdown. So we're just cautioning the family, be prepared. This 2026 is going to be a roller coaster around the world as World War III unfolds. We don't have the script here. I don't want anyone to feel like we have the script. Yes, we declared all of this was coming, but we were building on the sound we got from our ancients and our elders. We came into the movement hearing of these days, and now we are a witness. So it's not new that we're bringing forward that you see on this platform. It's the prophecy fulfilling, and we have to play our part. Africa awaits our creators and creation, and it's so important that we pursue our purpose. And so I love to bring forward guests who are living within their purpose, because that's the only way you'll escape what's coming, is right frequency, being in the right place at the right time on that narrow path that leads to purpose. So let us try to remain on that narrow path as the chaos ensues, because it's going to get worse. The dollar's going to collapse, all of them things there. So if you have big savings in the bank, you need to be transferring these things to tangible assets right now: gold, silver, land, businesses that generate resources, building your brand that you can travel anywhere around the world and operate. That's how you have to be thinking right now, in a dynamic type of fashion, because we're literally watching the dying of one age and the emergence of another age. This doesn't happen all the time in human history. We're seeing the end of the colonial age into the new, what they're calling a multipolar world, meaning that there are multiple centers of power as the peoples of the world emerge. Technology levels the playing field. It's unprecedented times, and we want to be at the forefront. So before we bring forward our guests, make sure you big up the greatest online community on the planet, the Lion Pride. If you subscribe, you're part of the Lion Pride. Remember, the Lion Pride is what makes this work. Big up to our Lion Pride on Patreon. We're still lingering at 42. We do have our contest. Let me bring forward just a reminder for the next 25 people who join the Patreon, which is our monthly subscription. You'll get entered into a raffle. And the raffle, we have the prize package. Number one, you get a free Empress Menen Foundation calendar for 2026-27. You get a bookmark. You get a signed copy of my book, Haile Selassie's Ethiopia, Rise of the Priestly Warrior King. And you will also get the Lion of Judah jacket from our elder Johnny Johnson. If you look on our community tab, you can see images, beautiful images, my daughter modeling. So the next 25 people are automatically entered. We're trying to break 50 so we can start our grant program. When we have 50 people in our monthly subscription, we're going to start giving monthly micro grants to different workers in the Rastafari community, followed by interviews. So we're not just going to interview, we're going to vote in our town hall meeting every month. And we will be announcing the date of our next town hall meeting by Monday. So look out for that. The newsletter, end of the year newsletter, the Roman calendar year is also coming. We're going to cover October, November, December. So we have a lot coming for the ecosystem. We just had a new member join our Ubuntu Lion Pride. And if you just joining us, the Ubuntu Lion Pride, we have, how we sustain this is that it's audience supported. So our audience supports with monthly subscriptions. We have people at $5, $10, $25, all the way up to $85. And if you give a one-time contribution of $100 on the platform, you become an Ubuntu Lion Pride sponsor, meaning that's a lifetime designation. You go up on our collective security wall, and when we get a physical space, because the plan is to build a physical studio at some point, we'll have a wall with all of our Ubuntu Lion Pride. So it's saying that I love the work that I'm seeing on this channel. I love the content. I want to be a part of its history. So you can become an Ubuntu Lion Pride. And we would love to have the item. We're building a community. We're trying to redefine, not trying, we are redefining what independent, non-aligned media looks like. So that's our goal, and that's what we're doing. And we are 58,500 plus strong in the Lion Pride. But we need more strength on the economic side for the Lion Pride on Patreon. Our goal is, a mature ecosystem is 1,000 paid monthly subscribers. We have a long way to go, but we're going to push. No one is coming to save us, family. We got to save ourselves. So if we don't invest in the media that we want, if we don't invest in the health centers that we want, the schools that we want, we have to pay for everything. We can't wait for Babylon to give us reparation. They're not going to give us reparation until they have to. Babylon only respects power, and that power has to be demonstrated through the economic sphere. The only way we demonstrate that is cooperative economics, Ujamaa, meaning we pool our resources together. So we are building this media on a crowdfunding concept. So we give thanks. You can also contribute, become a member of our Action Lion Pride by looking above the comment section. There's a $sign there. You can give a super chat during the live stream, any amount that you want. Encourage the works. We love it. Big up yourself, Ras Roots, always setting a great example. But we would love to see others join our Lion Pride on Patreon with supporting the platform financially. We have the vision is much bigger than where we are today, and we deserve it as Rastafari people. And we're not gonna go to CNN or BET our MS Now. They changed the name to MS Now to get our news because they don't respond for us. They don't care about us. You know what I mean? So we can't wait for these people to showcase our needs. Are we going to be left out in the dust? So I just want to again just big up everyone. I want to just bring everyone into reminder that Jamaica, the island of Jamaica, has gone through severe tribulation. I'm going to play a message from the RMO.
Blessed love everyone. So tonight we're here packing up some stuff to go into country. On behalf of RMO, so the item can always, donate wherever possible. For all the ones who have lost some or most things. So we're just creating some packages for them.
So this is video I've been spending. We have gotten a lot more videos, but we have to take time to edit them. Relief crews are going out every weekend. Right now it's very small and modest. Brethren are doing what they can, but we are raising funds to expand the works. So we big up the efforts, and over here we're not going to focus on what we don't have. We do that too much. We want to focus on what we are doing, and we want to amplify what we're doing. So we can talk about what we're not doing, what we're not ready. Yes, that's valid, but look at the car back, full of supplies, brethren and sisters rising to the occasion. So we're not going to focus on what we're not doing here on the Lion Voice Network. We're going to use Rastafari, independent, non-aligned media to highlight the good that's happening, because good things are happening, but they need strength. It can't happen alone. So Rastafari Relief, Rebuild and Rise plan. You can scan the QR code. There's a GoFundMe. I've been putting it in the description of the videos as well. The link to the GoFundMe, so you can support. I think we were it was at 2,600. The goal is 500,000. The goal is not just to rebuild, but to totally redesign and reimagine what Rastafari in Jamaica looks like. The slate has been wiped clean by Mother Nature, so now that gives us an opportunity to really, go into these Rastafari sites, get some professional surveyors, engineers, architects to go do a proper site plan, soil testing, put in some economic industry into the sites as well, so we can create employment and have some programming and plans along with the rebuild, so that we build sustainably. So that's what we're doing, and that's where we are with that plan. So again, we just give thanks. When you see me sipping, I'm sipping Ramia King Design. Big up Ras Lidge. Ramia King Design, one of our local businesses here. Anytime you see me sipping water, we're supporting Rastafari business. We live this. Also, big up Brother Carl Philpotts, one of our elders here. He has his book, The Testimony of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I, Defender of the Faith, on Amazon. Support our elder, support Frontline Books, all of the ecosystem that goes in. I'm talking to a few more Rastafari businesses, so you'll be seeing more products and services. That's another reason why Rastafari independent, non-aligned media is so important. As we build our audience, now we have the audience for people who are looking for Rastafari, authentic Pan-African products and services. Your audience is here. So we're creating our ecosystem with an economic base. That's the key for our liberation. So big up to all the sponsors, big up to the audience, the Lion Pride. All right, housekeeping out of the way. Family, Tonight, we welcome a force of nature. Tonight, we welcome an elder who has livicated her life. I've seen the evidence to the Pan-African struggle, to the liberation of black people, so much so that she has embodied Harriet Tubman. She's bringing the life of Harriet Tubman to life. She have the outfit, the everything. She goes and she does a whole one woman play, and it's so dynamic. You can book her for your events. Black History Month is coming up, so now is the perfect time. She is doing some marvelous things, but she also has her own story, and we're going to find out about that story tonight. So get your ital snacks and give a warm Lion Pride welcome to our elder Sister Adwoa. Royal blessings, royal blessings. Hold on 1 second. That was not the right button. My queen is not here, so sometimes we do it live and in check. All right, the royal, the royal. Give me some fire in the comment section. The royal elder, Sister Adwoa. Blessings, blessings.
Greetings, greetings. Good evening, one
Good
and all.
evening. Yes,
Giving
yes.
honor and praises to the Most High, to Rastafari, to all my honorable ancestors, to our brothers and sisters on the continent and throughout the diaspora. I greet you with all praises and respect.
Give thanks, give thanks. We have a tradition here on the Lion Voice Network when we have guests. And I know this is going to be very easy for you. We're going to ask you to step into the Lion Voice time machine and to take us to the moment of your birth and to paint the picture of your origin story. Where were you born and what was your journey to this Pan-African consciousness?
Very well. I was born and raised in New London, Connecticut, the youngest of 8 children. My parents were among those who exited the South the first opportunity they had. They met in California, my mother having been born and raised in Vicksburg, Mississippi. My dad having been raised in Knoxville, Tennessee, of Carolinian lineage, north and south. What brought my family to Connecticut was my father's service in the United States Navy. He was among the first to circumnavigate the world by submarine. That was the Trident submarine in 1960. That was before I was born. He and my mom managed to raise us. My mother, coming from Vicksburg, Mississippi, worked for the state of Connecticut for about 30 years while raising us, keeping us out of the Babylon confines, hostile pits and jailers. And for that, I'm glad. I have a relationship with my brothers and sisters. None of us are estranged. My parents didn't follow a formal Pan-African livity in my lifetime.
Okay.
While they were in their youth, my father was very active and very involved community organizer. And when you grow up in Vicksburg, Mississippi, when you grow up in the Jim Crow South, my parents were born in 27 and 26. Wow. And when you grow like that, you are African centered. Okay. You are African centered because those are your options. All right. You have to work things out independently. We live amongst each other. And that is how we are able to sustain ourselves and move forward in life. I have always been exposed to the best that my parents had to offer me as far as what they knew to be best, as far as education, as far as food. So I grew as a healthy youth And when I got knowledge within myself and became mature, I knew that I was on the Pan-African path.
Okay.
That's what resonates from within me. And when I met my husband, the late Adwoa Asante, he was able to introduce me to the DC Bingy House. He was able to introduce me to the Rastafari Basic Academy. He was able
Yeah.
to introduce me to members of the African diaspora that were organized, that were doing things, not simply talking about doing things, but actually implementing works that were conducive to growth and development of we people throughout the world. And so I've always had a healthy respect to be among Rastafari and
You know,
Africans at home and abroad.
you know that I'm not an unbiased interviewer in this interview because I've known you so long. So you know I can't just skip over the Ibiju, the Ras Ibiju love story. You got to tell me this love story. Where did you meet him first? What was it about him that made you stop and think? What paint the picture of that story.
It was a musician that introduced us. In DC years ago, there was a band called Black Sheep, and they played reggae music, and they had a saxophonist, and he was also an educator, and he introduced us. My husband's superpower was his ITEL creations.
Yes.
He made ITEL food. He made ITEL drink.
Yes.
It was awesome.
Top notch.
All the time. The Mosh, he had a very good direct link to Mosh from Belize.
Yes.
And blessed the community with that. It was good. He had Sorrow. He was a Trinidadian man, so he also had Marby.
Marby. He's the man that introduced me to Marby.
Yes, yes. Marby, a natural coolant for the body. As our ancestors would toil in the fields, they needed to be cooled from inside out. And that's what the Marby bark did for them. It helped to preserve them so they wouldn't just fry in the sun. So it's things like that that let us know our connection is long and our connection is deep, because we as a people, we have always been educated and informed. We have always been ones to work with nature. It is against our very essence to go against nature. We have a healthy respect for nature, and we use the tools that Mother has provided with us to keep us and sustain us as we go through these trials and tribulations that we've been through, not just today, but we've been going through it. So it's important to me to not be the weak link in the chain. I come from honorable ancestors. I want to sustain myself and do what I can to pass on a baton, not just words, not just wind, but concrete things that those who come after us can grasp and move forward.
What brought you from Connecticut to DC? How did you move from Connecticut to DC?
Okay, in Connecticut, I went through public schools. I went to a private college, Connecticut College. And even before I got out of high school, I began to travel. I had traveled to Europe. Once I got to college, I traveled again. I also made a couple of trips to the Caribbean at that time. And after I graduated undergraduate, I went to teach at an American school in Mexico. While I was an undergraduate, I studied in Spain a couple different times. So my Spanish.
Where did you go for undergrad?
For undergrad, I went to Connecticut College.
Okay.
In New London, Connecticut. It's across the street from the United States Coast Guard Academy. I grew up in a community that had the Electric Boat Division of General Dynamics. So they make nuclear submarines where I grew up. So this is just the mentality of the people. When you grow up in a military community, you have people that respond to yes sir, no sir type energies. So they made these weapons of mass destruction. There's a nuclear power plant there, and there's also a multinational corporation, purveyor of international drugs, really, in the name of Pfizer Pharmaceuticals.
Wow.
So my father, once he retired from military, he went to work for Charles Pfizer Pharmaceuticals. It was one of the first industries in the area that would hire a black man. And he did at least 20, 30, I think he did 30 years there. And so I was conscious of the international community. I had contacts with international people my whole life, not specifically those in tune to Pan-Africanism, but I was born the way I was born. And I always had within me a concern for we people. I wasn't always able to articulate it, but that fire has always raged in me. And as I got knowledge within myself and got mature, I could feed that flame and read and learn and travel. And it became very important to me after I went to Mexico that I not say and do things that were against my big mama and big daddy in Mississippi, that were against the people who raised me, that were against the people who blood, sweat, and tears provided a solid foundation for me to stand on today. By doing that, it was very easy for me to leave Mexico, not with a feeling confident and sure that I could articulate myself intelligently and say and do the things that were appropriate for my community. So that sent me to Howard University. I went to Howard University and I got a master's degree in political science. When first I arrived at Howard, I studied international politics because that's what I thought I'd want to do. The international politics at the time at Howard, and if you know Howard, if you know its history and whatnot, you know the children, the students, the young men and women that they produce are beautiful. You have beautiful professors. But when I got to political science at Howard and I began to study international politics, I was being turned on to Russia. I was being turned on to balance of power theory and things like that. And I just could not grasp it. It didn't work for me. But what worked for me was Pan-Africanism. That is what I could understand because I could see from our perspective where we're coming from, where we are, and the things that we need to do to move us into the future in a healthy way. So I switched from international relations to Black politics. Once I began to study Black politics, I studied people like Kwame Nkrumah. I studied people like Ahmed Sekou Touré. I studied Lumumba. I studied Marcus Garvey. I studied Kwame Touré. I studied the people that were articulating unity amongst we people so that we could be strong, so that we can be most capable in this time to do the battle that we've done throughout the ages. It's not new, but again, we must be strong and we must prepare our future, those who come after us, to not hang in there. I'm not interested in hanging anywhere. I want to thrive. I want to move forward in a healthy way amongst all of those on the international stage.
Give thanks, give thanks. So, Howard University, and then just like myself, where did you meet Rasa Ibiji? You said it was at a reggae show?
Actually, the brother escapes me, but I'm sure some of your listeners know his name begins with a D. He was the saxophone player in the Black Sheep Reggae band that was around. We actually met at the House of Knowledge on Georgia, and we were talking about food and whatnot. He said, I know a Ross in the community. He has the best of mosh, the best of food and drink, and I want you to meet him. So we met actually by Ibijus, and I'll be honest with you, over the years, it took a couple years. Ibiju, I'm sure he gave me his number like maybe a dozen times or something. I never really reached out to him. But when I did, I was glad I did, because he was a man. He was a rather soft-spoken man. I mean, yes. He was a lion who could roar. But for the most part, he tried to be observant of what was going on and tried to choose wise in his movements and the things that he said and did. And like I said, he said, well, you are a Pan-African and I'm a Pan-African too. And as Caribbean people, our cultural legacy is to organize. We may, amongst us, fight and bicker, but everybody amongst us knows that we have to come together in order to be as strong as possible. I belong to this community, and he invited me to the Nyabingi house, and he, knowing my feelings and my politics, he said, "Oh yeah, you can come and chant down Babylon with us all night long," and that's what he did. And it was good. It was nurturing. It was refreshing. It was.
What was your first impression of the Nyabingi house?
My first impression was it had tremendous potential in terms of men, women, and children. It was family friendly. They were invited to be a part of the Bingy House, and I didn't see it functioning without all of the above taking roles in terms of keeping the place as Rastafari Liberty, as I understand it. It's about good health and hygiene. It's about good diet, and the men and women I saw organized within the Bingy House were advocates of that. Where they had shortcomings, I saw people who could face those shortcomings and continue to work toward a common goal and common effort that was edifying of our youth, that was edifying of our future. And that I could appreciate. The Rastafari Basic Academy was something that came out of the Bingy House that was helpful to my children. And we certainly did miss it when we left DC. It's one thing, as they were, my oldest two will recall, if we went to a birthday party, it was an ITIL birthday party. The birthday cake was vegan. We didn't have to have any discussions about, oh, can I just have one slice, or, oh, it's the birthday cake, or we didn't have to have discussions like that. Once you come out of an organized community where people are thinking like you and in a progressive way, and you put your children in a community where they're like surrounded by, when they leave your house, they get like 360-degree different vibe from, how things should go. And that was something that was not a positive part about moving the children from the DMV, because they missed that. And while we went into a community center that celebrated Kwanzaa, during that time of year, we really didn't fellowship with people that 365 days out of the year were on page progress, were on page unity. I mean, striving, there were movements forward, there were at times setbacks and things like that, but still consistently striving for good, consistently striving for unity, consistently striving to build a better world for everybody. And that's one thing that I could appreciate from the DMV, so that when we got the opportunity to return here one day after my youngest daughter graduated high school, we returned to the community. She didn't experience a lot of the community that my older two daughters experienced, but she still could appreciate the DMV as a more progressive place than where we were in Connecticut. We weren't in a big city. We weren't in Hartford or Bridgeport. We were in, I explained to you, Coast Guard Academy, military, this, that. When you're around people who want the development of weapons of mass destruction, because that is what brings food to their table, that's a different liberty than being around. Now, while we were there, we were amongst the rebel rousers of the crew who would, chant down the Christopher Columbus statue. I was there when my daughters, made sure the mayor moved that. He moved that to protect it because they kept messing it up, because that's a bygone, passe type of thought framework where you can have people who do harm to your community as big statues, and you got to look at them every day. And their contribution to your historical legacy was negative. So my children have the Rastafari spirit in them. They received it from their father. They received it from the liberty, because he was consistent. It didn't matter that he left the DMV and went to Connecticut. he still lived by certain principles that were Rastafari principles, and he passed them on to our children. So they have what it takes to be successful, because this is a win for our community.
It was a major loss when you all moved away. I still remember. Um, it was a big, because IBG was such a major part. We could always look forward. The brethren would bring forward the nicest bakes and sea moss and the marby, and he was a kete man too, so we could always depend on him on the harps. You know what I mean? So it was a major loss, theoretically, for the Washington, D.C. community, but it was also, I think it speaks to the strength. I really want to do a documentary about the Nyabingi House. I think it was so special when I reflect on it. It's one of my sad reflections, though, because as a community, if we had bought that property, right now that property is probably $1.52 million of value, and we were too young to know at the time what we had. But in reflection, um, we see, wow, as you say, the potential was so sky high, but we didn't have that vision collectively to harness and create that economic foundation that could have sustained that operation. But I give thanks um, for the eye and the presence that the eye and the eye family always had. Was so beautiful to see the twins, to see the babies coming through, rocking Aya Bingi, whether it was at Brandywine, whether it was in the basement of the Bingi house, you know what I mean, wherever. As she says, the Naya Bingi house in DC was a very family. Yeah, even though there was a lot of fire, we had all the, it was all stratas of the village were there. The babies, the adolescents, the teenagers, the young adults. You had the we had so many college students at that time, the adults and the elders, so it was really dynamic and something very special. All right, so what I want to talk to you about now, when you were here in the DMV, I didn't know that you had acting skills. I didn't know that you were a historian. I didn't know that you would put all of these gifts together to bring to life one of the most iconic African American figures, uh, Harriet Tubman. What led you to um, that Harriet Tubman, and then explain to the people what you do with Mama Harriet Tubman?
Absolutely. I chose Harriet Tubman because Harriet Tubman, to use the vernacular of the youth of today, she, as far as Pan Africans go, she is a GOAT. She's the greatest of all times. She was a woman like myself. She accomplished much. She was from very humble means. She was a spiritual woman, and just a relentless fighter on behalf of her people, for them to receive truth and right in this time. As a grad student at Howard University, I also worked as a substitute teacher. And when I finished my master's degree, I was invited to teach at Woodrow Wilson High. It's no longer called Woodrow Wilson High. Woodrow Wilson was not a friend of our community by any way, shape, or form. And the name I don't have it now, but it's a more progressive person in terms of how we people, as far as we people are concerned. But I did start a Back to Africa club while I was there, and we did make a couple trips to Ghana. There was a young man from Ghana that also taught, and so he was my faculty co-sponsor, and that enabled me to share what I had learned with the students. For instance, we sold candy bars so that we could make money in order to take this trip to Africa. And while we sold candy bars, they also had to learn of the fact that Kwame Nkrumah was the first independent sub-Saharan president. After World War II, the African countries, the Caribbean countries, colonies all around the world said, look, we're done going to Europe and fighting for freedom for everybody but us. So Ghana was first to achieve its independence after World War II, when many stood up and said, we're going to change this dynamic. We're not going to do this anymore. And he was a very prolific man. He was a man that had done some learning in Lincoln University in Pennsylvania. He had studied in Oxford, and he was now, as president of Ghana, he was prepared and ready to enter the international stage using his own engineers, wearing his own traditional clothes, and moving his nation into the future in a healthy way. The international community let him know under no uncertain terms that he would be invited amongst them under their terms, not under his. To make a long story short, they sank his economy. Ghana at the time had a monocrop economy like many developing countries do. It was a lot was riding on cocoa, and when Europeans refused to buy his cocoa, his economy was sank. And although the people loved him, once he went left the country for diplomatic reasons, they let him know that was a safer bet for him, that they were starving and things had to change. They didn't want to assassinate Kwame Nkrumah. They knew him to be a good man, but when you're talking about the international world, when you're talking about people selling each other out and things like that, just dreadful things that could happen, he stayed away. He was not assassinated, and his teachings and writings remain today. He's a great case study in terms of Pan-Africanism, because he recognized that we had the talent and skill set right on the continent to do whatever we needed to do in the world. And he encouraged us to do that. We don't have to go around reinventing the wheel. If we actually look at the teachings of people like Kwame Nkrumah, look at the teachings of people like C.L.R. James, look at the teachings of people who, like Malcolm, who have come before us, who have shared with us things that will last the test of time in terms of strengthening us as a people, and enabling us to put up a good fight on the international stage, which is a hostile stage to be in, because if you know the history in the past several hundred years, you know what's been going down. Yeah. Now, I chose Harriet as a woman who was about, like I said, who's a woman who came from humble means, but was about doing great. And by great, she was about doing right by we people. Okay. When she passed in 1913, a lot of people don't realize that Harriet Tubman lived to be well up into her 90s. She had lived in a home that she created, okay, for elders and those who were most needy. It was upstate New York. She said people would knock on her door because they walked from Alabama because they wanted to meet her. And she saw that in our community, elders, there's a need for people to step forward and assist with the elders. And she met that need. So when it came time for her to have those services herself, there were already people in place who knew how to do that, to knew how to be helpful to her and to preserve her until the Most High called her. Because she didn't just think about it or write about it, she lived that life. And I'm involved in Pan-African activities, organizations, and things like that, because we must show our youth how to do the things that we expect them to do. It can't just be theory. We can't do one thing and teach them another. They have to see us. This is how you support elders. This is how you help keep the community strong. And so I see it as my duty as a healthy, able-bodied young adult to be a voice for the voiceless, to be supportive of those who come after us, to be supportive of those who have laid the foundation, those who have sacrificed so that we can achieve today. And we have to show them how it's done. And that's how we've lived our life consistently. Baba Bijou stood firm. He stood firm on truth and right. He stood firm on good health and hygiene for the community. No half stepping, consistently from beginning to end. And go back and do it again if you need to. But be consistent and, be a contributor to growth and development as opposed to someone who is about confusion and diversion and division and things like that. I see the potential in Rastafari to overcome all of that because it is an international organization. It's made up of people all over the globe, and it's about being truth and right and supporting one another. So that's the beauty that I find in Rastafari as a manifestation of the Pan-African struggle and progress that we must make. We're committed to. Our ancestors deserve no less for the sacrifices that they have made. We must continue, and we must continue to be strengthened as we learn from them. We must teach, and that is how we will stay strong as a community. It's not rocket science; it's basics.
So you don't just tell Harriet Tubman's story. You actually you embody Harriet Tubman as part of your ministry. What is the preparation? What kind of preparation do you have to do that? And what type of research? Where did you research? Where did you get the information? Because you also answer questions as Mama Harriet Tubman. So people who come to your performance, they can ask questions, they can interact with you as Mama Harriet. What kind of preparation did that take, and where did you get some of your research from?
Absolutely. I have researched Harriet Tubman from the place of her birth in Dorchester County, Maryland, to her resting place up in Auburn, New York. I have been in conversations with scholars from Alabama, from Georgia, from Mississippi, from throughout the DMV, from all over the world, so that it's very important. As I consider myself an edutainer because what I do is educational, but it's also entertainment in terms of it can bring in the interest in a different way than sit down, be quiet, read the book. The paradigm of public education, when you come in as an actor and you can share the knowledge. For instance, I talk about executive decisions. I talk about judiciary decisions. I talk about legislative decisions. Okay, in this country, we're supposed to have 3 branches of government. And I talk about those decisions that impacted Harriet Tubman's life and times so that people can get a broader picture of what she was actually up against, what was going on in the broader community when she was, doing her struggles. What did she have to work through? I talk about people. I talk about events. Harriet Tubman never formally learned to read or write, but she had some very good contacts. She had some lifelong people that she considered friends. She didn't simply deal with people of African descent. She didn't simply deal with free Africans or enslaved Africans. She dealt with indigenous people. She dealt with white people. She dealt with women who were involved in the women's rights movement. But under no uncertain terms did she ever detach herself from her background, from the community which produced her, and hold up someone else's platform ahead of we people platform in terms of our growth and development and our preservation in the sphere where we are. Harriet knew that everyone wasn't going to go back to Africa, that there would be many that would remain here, and she was concerned with our growth and development, our preservation from day one until her last day. And I can respect that. And I'd like to honor that. I do believe that our ancestors help in our guidance and in our protection. Harriet Tubman believed that she was Ashanti. When I took my students to Africa, things began to line up for me. Okay.
Okay.
Began to see a connection. And Harriet believing that she came from these people from West Africa, and I've gone through the door of no return in Cape Coast, West Africa. So it's just a natural evolution for me to begin to, as I got this knowledge within myself, and I've always enjoyed theater. I was in theater as a child. I was in community theater. I was in plays, coming up, school plays and things like that. I was never the feature, and never was there a feature that even centered anyone that looked like me. I mean, this is like K through 12. It just wasn't, it wasn't happening. But still, I got talent and skills to become a performer, to do research, to really dot my I's and cross my T's. When you do something historical, you got to dot your I's and cross your T's. You have people in the audience that are just there to critique you, not necessarily to support you, but just to say, oh, are you sure about that date, or what have you, I
was going to ask you, because we don't hear much about the Ashanti connection with Mama Harriet. Absolutely. Where did you find out that information? Did she declare that? What sources?
You would have to do your own research. Mm-hmm. I can't identify to you the book, but it's out there. In Harriet's own words, she was told that I believe her mother's people were Ashanti. She didn't know anything, formally about Ashanti people and whatnot. But she knew that she came from. See, Harriet Tubman, her mother, her brothers and sisters, they weren't like, oh, that's those pushover, family over there, the Rosses or what have you. They were kind of, and we as a people in general, we don't take too kindly to being enslaved. People who try to enslave us, there were constant rebellions. There are maroon communities, not just in Jamaica. Anywhere you have Africans, you had Africans that would break away, go into the interiors and survive and say, look, we're not taking part in that foolishness. We had the Gullah Island people off the coast of the Carolinas. You had people all throughout the Americas and even around the world that said, no, we are original people. You got to come strong to get us, because we're capable, we're able-bodied, and we're not going to let you just come in and say and do whatever you want, and we sit quietly. That there's a consistency among slavers to downplay rebellions, but rebellions were constantly happening, because that's just what we do. When you try to do us wrong, you're going to be in for a fight. They didn't advertise it because it encouraged other ones, but they began to research and see what's going on and do the research. You will discover that a lot of the rebellions that were planned, they kept seeing these same names. And one of the names that kept coming up was the name Coromantee. These Coromantee people, okay, these are people that come from this particular, the Gold Coast. Gold Coast is because that's where they robbed a lot of gold from. And that's Ghana today. These Coromantee people, they got a rebellion here, and all the time when they're able to round up some of these rebellious people, consistently, time after time after time, the Coromantee are rising to the top because they're organizers and they're fighters. So wherever they are, we as a people, we come together and we depend on the strengths of who we're working with. And if the Coromantees are planning and organizing rebellion after rebellion after rebellion, when we're planning our rebellion, we want some of those Coromantees in on it too. Because you know why? Because they didn't always lose. There were successes. That's why we're here today. And where we are all over is because we've been successful.
I think you've touched a key point, because, and this is why it's so important that we tell our own stories, because you can look at the transatlantic slave trafficking as a victimhood, or you can look at it as an extended war, which it was a European war of aggression in Africa. But as you say, the resistance never stopped. It manifested, and the way that they painted in the West is that Europeans were so kind that they went around and abolished slavery because of the goodness of their heart. But when you do the research, you find out that there were so many rebellions, it was getting the economics was starting to break down because the rebellions were getting more plentiful, more frequent, and they were actually losing lives. Prominent slave owners were getting butchered with their families, and a lot of things were taking place. And so they preemptively ended the trade, and then made it look like they were philanthropists. So it's very important who tells the story, because that version minimizes the resistance of the African who never gave up, never. And I think Mama Harriet is a powerful symbol of that. And I'm so happy that you brought that Ashanti link, because one of the things when I went to Mississippi last year for the first time, and I went to the museum, they have a African American History Museum there, and I was pleasantly surprised how prominent Africa featured, and the consciousness of people in Mississippi that they were Africans. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So speak to that. How and you touched on Harriet Tubman's family, because we don't talk about where she comes from. Talk about her family and what made up her mentality.
We'll do. I'll talk about both of our families. I found that my mother was an only child in Mississippi, but she had a lot of aunts and uncles. And I was looking through our bag of obituaries, the little paper you get when you go to a funeral. There's a bag of them for people in my family. You just put them in the bag. And I was looking at her eldest aunt, and her eldest aunt belonged to an anti-slavery society. Now, she was born after slavery ended, but she felt the need to belong to an anti-slavery society in Mississippi. That filled me with pride to know that I come from people. We might not be talking formally around the table about the talented 10th or anything like that, but we have lived the life of people that are clear on who they are, where they're coming from, and the things they need to do to be strong and on into the future. Harriet Tubman, like I said, she was born and raised in Dorchester County. There's a couple museums in that area now. I've been privileged to perform there. And I learned several years ago, my youngest now is about to come out of college. She's a couple years ahead, but back when she was in 5th grade, I homeschooled her, and we went to an international conference of Black homeschoolers in Atlanta, Georgia. And I met a couple out of Alabama. Okay. These were serious researchers. It was a husband and wife team, and they were elders to me. Okay. And they were welcoming people to come and work with them in Alabama. But he broke down to me the fact that as I go about doing my research, that I really have to consider my sources, and I have to think if what I'm reading makes sense. I believe his name was Wakasa or something like that. Again, that information can be researched because he stood firm on this one particular story that I'm going to tell you that inspired me about my research. I read books and I do interviews and things like that. And this is just a glaring point that really helped me a lot. They said, a lot of people, you'll hear the story about Harriet Tubman and how she carried a weapon. And if you were with her and you tried to turn back, she would point that weapon at you and say, oh, no, you can't, let's go. Right. This couple really.
Is that Baba Wakesa?
Yes, Baba Wakesa. Yes. And his wife.
Yes, Mama Afua.
Yes, they've impacted me tremendously, and I just want to tell this.
I had him on this story, but continue.
This one part that just changed my whole research, my whole thoughts, and my whole inspiration. Harriet would point her gun and say, "You can't turn back. Go ahead. You're either gonna, come with us, or you're gonna end it here, right?" And when you do research on Harriet, you will see that she had a sleeping sickness. Okay. while she was still growing, adolescent. She got between a slaver and a captive man, and he ended up busting open her head with a weight. And she was very sickly. It was her mother who kept her alive. Her mother knew how to treat wounds. Her mother knew how to quiet a baby. And these are skills that she learned from her mother that proved to be very helpful to her. Her mother kept her alive, whereas other people would have perished. She clearly had brain damage. She clearly had damage to her cranium with this weight, and she would fall into sleeping, no rhyme or reason. She couldn't predict when it would happen. Later on in life, she did believe she was in communication with the Most High at those times. But real time, as it began to happen, as she was going through her journeys, her more than 13 journeys back into the slave states of the South that she made to free her loved ones, her family, and those with willing enough hearts to make the arduous journey. This sleeping sickness would possess her at unpredictable times.
Yes.
So Baba Wakesa told me, okay, now she has this sleeping sickness. You're traveling with her. Does that really make sense that she's going to point her gun at you? I mean, just think about it. At any time, she's going to pass out. We don't got to run away from her. We could just walk away. She's going to be dead as a doornail for however many she's going to be dead. But we don't have to run when she's wide awake. We could just walk away.
Exactly.
What's she gonna do? She's not gonna be able to catch us and kill us. She's trying to move in this direction. In fact, we better preserve her. She know the way. We're not gonna let nothing happen to you, Miss Tubman. She wouldn't even take her first opportunity for escape, she did with her brothers. They panicked. They turned back and said, "Look, we just don't think this is going to be successful. This is going to be a good move." Mm-hmm. She made up her mind at that time that she'd have to go it alone or go with people that were absolutely committed, like she was, to stepping out of this situation. And so she vetted people. You didn't go with Harriet because you wanted to go with Harriet. You went with Harriet because Harriet let you go with her. Okay. And you kept her alive. You didn't let anything go near her because she knew where she was going. She knew what she was doing. So it doesn't make sense that she's going to point her gun at you. Now, what seems truer is any person or thing that prevented you on your journey would get the wrath of her gun, but not she pointing gun on the people that are around her. They've already been vetted and they want her alive. So that didn't make sense. And they really elevated my consciousness about that. They say that, they be careful what you research, make sure that what you're seeing is making sense to you. She have a sleeping sickness. People aren't going to wait for her people just have to wait for her to fall out and they gone if they wanted to go.
Exactly.
So
she wasn't forcing anybody to go north.
No. And she wasn't going with weak hearts either.
Yes.
She vetted you before you left. She had to know that you were absolutely committed. This was a hard journey. I mean, they would travel through woods at night and stuff. Every pestilence, vermin is in the woods at night. Okay. So if you aren't up for the arduous part of it, then she's not the one to move with.
So you touched on it. Talk about, we hear the sound the Underground Railroad. It's almost become kind of cliche, but people don't really, I don't think, especially for our international audience, if you can explain, what was the Underground Railway. It wasn't actually all underground, but explain what the Underground Railway was.
Okay, the Underground Railroad is a figurative term. It doesn't actually refer to a railroad. It is a series of people called conductors, and places called station stops where people escaping bondage would work through in order to move north to freedom. Now, in 1850, the United States passed the Fugitive Slave Act. This was actually a second Fugitive Slave Act, but it's the most significant one in that they said loud and strong, we don't care where you go. You can go north of the Mason-Dixon line, which separates the slave states of the slave states from the non-slave states in the east. We don't care if you go Canada, wherever. If we find you, we're going to drag you back into slavery. You're not safe anywhere. So that went down. However, you always had allies that thought this institution was abysmal and it needed to be broken, and they were supportive. Like I said, Harriet had people that she considered lifelong friends that supported her, people from all walks of life that were a part of her station stops to ferry people, to keep them safe, to give them a warm place to be, to give them a fresh clothes, to give them some food, to give them some rest, some respite as they journeyed. And that's what the Underground Railroad is. It was a series of supportive individuals and locations to help people on their journeys to freedom. And that's what the Underground Railroad was. It wasn't a literal railroad. I call my show Harriet Tubman, a woman with a railroad. She did have her own railroad. She had her Underground Railroad. And at this time, it was very not wise for you to be discovered. So the participants in the Underground Railroad, there might not be names. They weren't lists of names. There you have newspaper editors, you have politicians, you have clergy that were leaders in Pan-African, leaders of Pan-African communities at the time that stepped up and assisted. And then you had also people from the larger community that, you don't hear about them. This country had presidents that were slavers, and you hear about them, but it had more presidents that weren't slavers than were, but you don't really hear that about them, because the people that you hear big up in the major news or the major culture and stuff like that are the people that were most harmful to us, not the people that were most helpful to us.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to name an airport after someone who was about growth and development for we people. And that was, they were centered around that. I don't mean it was just something that happened along with some other goals that they had, but we're centered on that. They're not going to have an airport. You're going to have the Ronald Reagan Airport, a person that time and time proved that he wasn't interested in our community. I mean, you have a Klansman in the White House today in 2025, so there's consistently been people that have helped us as a community. They don't get bigged up, and they don't necessarily want to get bigged up, because the popular culture in this country is to be hostile toward that ilk. People talk about the Revolutionary War in this country. This country used to be a part of the British Empire. Okay, they were about to eliminate slavery, just as DejazmatKwasi said. It was getting expensive for them. All right, the colonies here in the United States is, oh no, hell, look, we're gonna be independent. Yeah, we'll put some tea in the ocean and say taxes, whatever, but you're not gonna outlaw this institution here, because we're making a lot of money. Okay, you had people from Rhode Island, elite people. They jetted. They went to Cuba, set up plantations in Cuba, because they knew they'd be able to ride out their lifestyle longer there than what would probably happen in this part of the world. But Rhode Island was called the plantation state. I mean, even the founders of my state of Connecticut, they said, oh, this is a nice plantation, as they're looking at this river. I grew up on a deep sea river. Okay, so when you have big ships, you have to anchor them. You take little ships in. But in my town, you can come real close to town's edge before you anchor, because it's a deep sea port. So you had, from my town in Connecticut, you had direct trips from Africa right up on into town. Okay, I was part of a port markers ceremony. So they went all over the U.S. honoring our ancestors that came in as captives at various ports, and my hometown was one of them. I was called on to pour libation for that event, and so that's something I'm very proud of. When I was in elementary school, Our mascot were the Clippers, the Harvest School Clippers. Okay, what's a Clipper? A Clipper is a type of ship. A Clipper was a ship that was built for speed and maneuverability to get in and out of the smaller ports of the Caribbean. Okay, so in addition to doing Harriet, as I always continued my research, but I continued to learn more. When I got to high school in my town, your mascot becomes the Whalers, okay? Because it's a whaling town, and there's Whaler Oil Row and stuff like that. My parents had a house walking distance from Whale Oil Row in my hometown. Okay, so whale oil is something that the region likes to build up because it's somewhat palatable. But as I began to do my research, I began to discover that we could just as easily have been the New London high school slavers, because the state of Connecticut was 101% complicit in the industry. We were the number one fan of the industry in the South. We had textile mills. Eli Whitney, the so-called inventor of the cotton gin, I don't believe he had that sense, but I think he had the sense enough to be a white man with money to walk into a patent office and say, give it to me right now. A lot of people, cotton was raised in places like Mississippi, Alabama, in the South. So you would think the cotton gin would come from there. No, it came from Eli Whitney. But if you study his history, he grew up right outside of Yale, New Haven, right in that area. And his friends and his family, they were textialists. So it was in their interest to have cheap cotton. And at its height, good cotton from the United States was in demand all around the world. I mean, the best cotton all around the world. So it was in their interest to have cotton, the price of cotton low. So yeah, let's get this gin going, because it's about making money. So I say that to say, as I began to do research and as I began to discover that millionaires were made in my town, millionaires were made throughout the state on this industry. So if you're a youth today and you're demanding that Black history be in the school books and there's a curriculum to develop that, yes, you are. You're absolutely demanding this because you and your ancestors have put blood, sweat, and tears in the establishment of everywhere throughout the world, not just Connecticut, not just the United States, not just in this hemisphere, but all over the world. So we must assert our right to not only get this knowledge, but also benefit from society. Absolutely, unapologetically demand proper education, unapologetically demand proper health care, unapologetically demand jobs, unapologetically demand housing, unapologetically demand what we need to sustain ourselves as human beings, because we've already paid in. We fought in every war, blah, 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 here, there, and we are asking what is our due. We're not begging. We're not even asking. We're demanding. Of course we should have reparation. What is wrong with you? You think we're sleeping on the job or something? Everywhere around the world, people have gotten reparations. You think we're going to not get reparations, but every other community is? They're still paying dues from the Holocaust, from this period to this period and world history where your people were treated wrong. They still getting checks. We're not just going to get education. We're not just going to get healthcare. Yes, we deserve that. Just like everywhere else, just like Canada, Germany, wherever you go. The most expensive things to do should not be get sick and get an education. There's nothing sexy about our young adults starting their young adult life in six-figure debt. That is criminal that you have this going on. And we have to demand better. And what are you going to do to change that? That is one thing that I respect the Rastafari community about, because they consistently are about growth, development, positive change, trying to get along with each other so that we can realize this and we can all benefit. So that is why
I have a question here. We have a question. Who were the first settlers? You know, there's a lot of people online. There's this huge debate about, you know, were African Americans or Black Americans all from Africa, or were some here already?
Absolutely. There were more African people here on this hemisphere prior to the transatlantic slave trade than after. Then I should say that came through the transatlantic slave trade. Absolutely. You can study Ivan Van Cernaba. They came before Columbus. You can study the Olmec heads in southern Mexico. You can study the fact that as they talk about the this bridge over the continent from Russia, and they talk about these kind of Asiatic ones coming to populate this land and stuff like that. No, 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 no. They did that was late in the game of people coming to this hemisphere. That wasn't they didn't come to a hemisphere empty and barren. They came to a hemisphere. It's almost like Columbus discovering America. No, you can't discover a land that's already occupied. So if you look at these Asiatic types and saying that they came here to discover, you can't discover a land that's already occupied. And we people, if you look at the proximity of West Africa to the Americas and things like that, do you think we needed some clowns that don't even know the earth is even round? I mean, because already you can do the research yourself. Indians knew the earth was, Arabs knew the earth was, Africans knew the earth was round. So you think we're gonna take advice from these clowns from Europe to tell us, oh, sail west and you'll come across some land? You think we had to have them come all the way from Europe down to West Africa? We already mariners. We already rocked the house as mariners, etc. The Iberian Peninsula from 711 all the way up to 1492, when Isabella and Ferdinand, under white supremacy, united those kingdoms to boot out the black merchants and rulers, the Moors, the Jews. They all look like us. They were all melanated people that they kicked off of the continent. And I'll talk about that further because I remember I went to Spain.
Yes.
See, a lot of people, they don't tell you. You learn about Hitler, right? Yes. And some people even know about Mussolini. Where's Mussolini from? He's from Italy, right? Yeah. Spain had its own fascist leader, Franco. Yes. Except Hitler, they say he was killed. He would probably lay low and who knows.
He probably went to Argentina.
He probably lay low there and cooled out. And Mussolini, they strung his butt up. They said, "No, your reign, nah." They strung him up in the town square. So they just did away with him. Yeah. Okay, enough was enough. Franco died in office. They never, the powers that be in Spain were never able to conquer his regime. So if you go and die in office, that means you probably have a lot of people that support you around there, you know? That whole fascist type white supremacist stuff, that's some old stuff, but it's not ancient. And we come from ancient. We come before that foolishness.
Yeah. Okay.
Guess
so
what?
Speak about that Moorish, since we have a scholar. We have a scholar tonight, family. Speak about some of that Moorish. What did you see in Spain to let you know the Black Moor influence?
Okay, well, the language itself is very influenced. And I first went to Europe, and what baffled me most about going to Europe, how it happened was my next door neighbor, a white guy, taught a couple towns over. He taught French, Spanish, English, whatever. So he said, oh yeah, I'm going to take a group of students. We're going to do 14 days in Europe. We're going to do like England and France. And if you save your money, you could go. You know, if you make a way for you to go, you can go. I said, oh, okay. So I don't believe hustlers are developed. I believe they're born. So I was a born hustler. I was the girl selling Toll House cookies out of my locker, selling multi-packs of gum out of my locker. And now you could get in a lot of trouble doing that. And the trouble I got in at the time was, look, you can't make people late for class. And people saying, oh man, I told you to save that for me. You know, I thought man, you know, so I hustled to make it happen because I wanted to travel. I was attracted to traveling because I knew where I wasn't all that. There had to be more to the world. There had to be more to everything than just growing up in where I grew up. So I traveled, I got out, and I found most interesting in Europe, the museums, all right? And how they would have this dynasty, and they would have this African kingdom and all this stuff. I just be like, wow, they got receipts for all that stuff up in there. Did they just rob these people all over the world? Well, you know the answer to that.
Yes.
Yeah. So you can get educated from Europe. I also grew up in a Greek neighborhood. So I grew up speaking Greek some Greek words and knowing Greeks. I grew up around Jazinguses and Papathanassios and Farias and Janokuses and stuff like that. So I could understand a little bit of the importance of being able to speak another language and everybody around you not understanding, and having to go to Greek school because your parents wanted you to be literate in their stuff. And just like Jewish youth go, so I grew up with people that had to participate in cultural development. My family went to church, and that has been an important community developer for we people, wherever we go, because we're real spiritual people. We have more churches, mosques, temple. We have more all of that than anybody else in the world. So we are spiritual people. The connection that we have with the Most High is fundamentally super important to us. The connection that we have with family is fundamentally super important to us. And we aren't brutalizers, and we know the lifestyle of men with men and women with women. That's not us, right? Because we are about being able to reproduce ourselves and pass on our legacy into the future. Those communities don't do that, but that doesn't mean that we support brutalizing these people, because that's them, that's their lifestyle, and so be it. But that's not about growth and development and our cultural tradition in Africa. And so we should unapologetically embrace what has kept us. And if you're about something different, then that's you. But it doesn't mean that we have to burn, fire burn, brutalize people in the streets and things like that. No, not necessarily.
We need to amplify the good and stay focused.
Yeah, exactly. We have too much work to do. Right.
But I really want to hone in on this discussion about the Moors, because I've never been to Spain, but I'm fascinated.
Yes. Yes.
1492, of course, you had the Battle of Granada.
Oh, okay.
One of the battles that was actually the last defeat of the Moorish Empire in Spain, and the same year Columbus embarked on his voyage. And then you have for Rastafari, 1892 is the birth of His Majesty. So exactly 400 years later, we have the birth of Haile Selassie. But a lot of people hear about the Black Moors of Spain. You look at the architecture,
right?
These big dome buildings. Are there clear signs in the museum? Do they show you that the Moors are Black, or do you have to piece that together from the history books?
There are some representations that are undeniable. There's also things that get doctored up, and things get changed. I didn't see in the big cathedrals and the big churches and things like that, but I'm told throughout Europe they all have shrines of the Black Madonna. They have pictures of the Black Madonna and Child and things like that, but they're not on display. You have to ask for them, and they'll take you. They're kind of behind the door, behind the curtain, and things like that. But they're there. And a lot of their holy places, like Notre Dame. I remember when on my 16th birthday, that was the thing. We went to Notre Dame Cathedral, are built on places that were holy places to people prior to them, the Catholics getting the power to build Notre Dame and things like that. There are records of melanated African people throughout Europe, all the indigenous communities. It's there. Stonehenge. I mean, you can just name thing after thing after thing, and you will find an African connection to the oldest, to the most ancient, to the most sacred things in Europe, because Europe is young relative to Africa. And the Moors are responsible for things like encouraging bathing among Europeans. Those fountains, public fountains, and beauty. You have to remember that our leaders in Africa were rocking running water, plumbing, when Europeans were still rocking caves, big coal, rocky. And these are the elites, not, nothing grand and pleasant and edifying and beautiful yet. They just hadn't arrived to that stage of development when we were already there. Cincore, and we had more books than Oxford and Cambridge and things like that. The greatest institutions that you have in the West, and even the Greeks themselves, they used to, in the earlies, they used to be more honest and more forthcoming as to where their greatness, their grandeur came from, spiritually, the Coptic Ethiopians, or in any other way. I mean, you got to remember, when you learn about European philosophy and stuff like that, didn't those philosophers, weren't they coming back like committing suicide? Weren't the powers that be taking them out, coming back talking that African stuff, that humanity stuff, that kindness and all like that? No, if you weren't the best fighter, then we're not even gonna give you the mic. Yeah, you might as well go kill yourself. This, we going with a might makes right thing here. You trying to talk about this philosophy stuff. If they were truthful, if they were honest, then they would tell you that if you study medicine, that a lot of the ancient teachings came out of Africa, and they still use the symbols and certain sciences from back in the day. The same for your industry, DejazmatKwasi law. There's a big influence in law from ancient law that came from we people. And even the indigenous people, that as the colonists came and took over this country and the Europeans came in, their councils and their leagues and their respect and admiration for women in their culture, that was different for Europeans, but certainly not for Africans and not for the indigenous people here. We've always had African queens. We've always had African queen mothers. We've always given honor to our mothers, to our wives, to our sisters, much power, much respect. His Majesty, when he was coronated, he said, oh, no, this isn't going to be me being coronated. This is going to be we being coronated. And Empress Menen also got her proper due in due order. And that's respectful. That's respectful. And that is a part of our tradition. It's not a part of the European tradition. Okay. They kept their women subservient, and, your father could inherit your son, your brother, your husband, but not you. That's not an African concept. So a lot of the foundations of spirituality and all that left out of Africa. When it came back into Africa, it was a different animal. And I think that more recent insertion into Africa, whether it was the Crusades or whether it was the Muslims going through Africa and implementing their whatever. So, you're not going to get educated unless you go to the Muslim school. You're not going to get educated unless you go to the British school. You're not going to get educated unless you go to the French school and things like that. That's all colonial stuff. Even the divisions of the countries in Africa. Oh, I'm Nigerian. Okay, well, that's still a colonial construct. I'm not making it up. It's just is what it is. But if you want us to be a more unified people, we need to look at the things that unite us, the commonalities. And as I did my research on Harriet, and as I returned to Connecticut, I began to learn more about Pan-African struggles right within the state where I was born. And that kind of brings me to the second part of my performance pieces. I, as truth seeker Adwoa, daughter of the African diaspora, I tell the story of the 1839 Amistad Rebellion. This is significant for me because it's about a clipper ship. And I told you I learned about clipper ships as an elementary school, but I didn't really know what they did. And this is a group of Africans. In 1839, the international trafficking in humans had been outlawed via international treaties. While the institution still existed, still persisted, people were making money, still bringing fresh Africans from Africa. So that's what's happened. People will take risks in order to make money, and they were still making money doing it. You had a bunch of Africans get caught up in this and being transported from one side of, at this time, Havana, Cuba was kind of like a lawless land. And it wasn't the only lawless land, but it was where corrupt officials would look a blind eye to 5, 6, 7 people showing up on their shores and being taken to barracoons, which is the Caribbean equivalent of a slave market. So I, in addition to telling the story of our honorable ancestor Harriet Tubman, I began to learn about other struggles and about how people of African descent, what they did to bring about change. I began to learn about sugar canes burning. Began to learn about cotton fields burning in this country when Africans just had enough. No, that's not happening like this anymore. And this group from Sierra Leone took over a ship. They were in Cuba. They had some plantation owners purchase them. They also chartered a ship. They bought low in Havana, and their plan was to sail 3 or 4 days to the other side of the island where they came from, buy low in Havana, sail to a place called Puerto Principe, sell high, make a lot of money. So amongst them, their floating general store, in addition to 53 captive Africans that would become known as the Amistad Africans, they had everything else for plantation workers and plantation life. And these Mende men, because they did come from organized societies. One thing about we people, we are organized. In addition, there's time and time again, wherever you go to research on the continent, you will see commonalities across the continent. It's a big continent. There's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of migration and things like that, but you still have common things that you find. So these men, they weren't all from Sierra Leone. They weren't all Mende, but the majority of them were. But even the non-Mendes, they were familiar with traditional societies. The leader that emerged from the Amistad, he was a Poro man, so he came from the Poro society. And if you survive Poro initiation, that means you are a man that can take care of the village. You are a man that can take care of a family. You are a man that can take care of yourself. And you are a man that can get together and palavar. You can get with other men and reason. You can come up with a plan. Even though all the differences you have going on, you can still come up with a plan and implement it successfully, because this is a part of our culture. This is what we did as a people. This is what has kept us to be the oldest people, and we're still rocking it today, is because of the things that we can do. These men were able to commandeer this ship. They were able to get caught up in a jet stream. Sailors will tell you that along the eastern seaboard, you can get caught up in a stream that will push you north. And this is what they did. They took over the ship. They kept the men that purchased them alive. And by day, they would sail toward Africa with the sun, because they knew when they were coming from Africa, the sun was on their back. So they knew that they had to sail toward the sun to get home. The people who had taken them had a plan at night. They would turn the ship around and sail it west again. They were trying to run up on the United States South, some slave states that would, probably help them get back to where they wanted to be. Maybe they could profit. It's all about profit for them and that ilk. To make a long story short, these men and children, that was all that was present, men and children, were able to keep it together. So when I tell the story of the Amistad, I tell it as a story of unity. At first, it's a story of sorrow, because I talk about the Middle Passage. I talk about them being rounded up. I talk about what they go through, being in jail in Connecticut and things like that. But I also talk about it as a story of unity, because they kept it together. They tried to divide and conquer them, say, okay, they tried to separate the leadership. They tried to say, okay, we'll send some of you back. No, we all came together. We're all going back together. That's it. They tried to separate the children and say, oh, don't you like it better here? Nope, we want to be with dudes over there, because we came with them and they're more familiar to us and they have not brutalized us. And you all are brutalizers. We've seen that much to know. And they were, and I tell it as a story of sorrow, a story of unity, and a story of ultimate triumph, because they did keep it together. Right. And they did get their freedom. And they got their freedom among justices that were slavers, that were supporters of the South. They still were able to demonstrate that they were fighting for their freedom. They had an interpreter. They had a dream team defense team. They invigorated abolitionists, which are people who weren't down with slavery. You always had people that weren't down with that. You had European people that said, these fools are crazy. This is crazy to treat people like that. We just not down. Those are called abolitionists in this country. And they were invigorated by these people to really continue to fight to end this dismal institution. And they provided these Amistad Africans with good defense. You had a former president that spoke long and eloquently, John Quincy Adams, against the institution and how this country shouldn't have anything to do with it. Um, and they were able to win their freedom. And after they won their freedom, they were able to work. They were able to go on speaking engagements as well as farm to raise enough money to charter a ship and go right back to Sierra Leone where they had come from. So I tell that story because when the Navy first got the ship, tattered sails, emaciated looking Africans, but we were still running the show. But when the Navy first got the ship, they towed it to my hometown, and it stayed there for 2 years. So as I began to do research and discover, wow, some Africans came here and they did all that, they had all this going, that I can appreciate. That is something for me to be proud of.
Wow.
And for me to be knowledgeable of, and for me to share that knowledge with other people, and for me to empower even the youth of the state to say, all of this has gone down. So when you're demanding education, when you're demanding healthcare, you're demanding it. You're not asking for it. Your ancestors have paid with blood, sweat, and tears to build this place so these places can profit. If you look at any nascent industry in the whole state of Connecticut, when did they begin to really stock cake? And I'm talking about industries like banking. I'm talking about industries like insurance. Connecticut used to be called the insurance capital of the world. Look at those old insurance companies. When did they begin to snack? Oh, it's during the triangular trade. They're insuring this whole industry. And this is how they began to make cake. And this is why they got big fancy stuff today. This is why you have family historical legacies. Income passed down. They're still wealthy today because of this time. So we're not asking for reparations. We're demanding reparations. Absolutely. Indigenous people got reparations. Japanese people, internment camps, got reparations. Jewish people, Holocaust, got reparations. You think everybody is going to get reparations for everything but us? I don't think so.
A lot of black people come to America and are ignorant of the struggle of Africans born and raised on this soil. What makes the African American special? When you look at the history, or what would you tell to those immigrants who are ignorant and make the mistake? There's a big debate online right now. You have some Africans who are ignorant saying that African Americans have no culture and silly things like that. What would you tell to an immigrant who is ignorant of the struggle? Because I have to admit, I grew up in Toronto, but I was ignorant outside of what I saw on TV until I went to Howard and I took a African diaspora class, and I took some classes and I learned about the struggle, how many slave rebellions were here, how many, how the innovation, the theft in the patent system,
Absolutely.
how the inventions were invented by, because we think that they took slaves from Africa. No, they took artisans, they took entrepreneurs, they took business people.
That's what you can be sure.
Farmers, they took people with skills and brilliance. But what would you tell to these ignorant immigrants who come here and are not familiar with some of the, the Harriet Tubman story, the Amistad, all of this great history? What would you tell to these people?
I would tell them, well, my brother, well, my sister, they sprinkled you here, they sprinkled you there, they sprinkled us here, but we're all from the same origin. Okay, we're not different. Understand this, and I make this under no uncertain terms. As I did my research on the Amistad, this was an industry, people, okay? These were businessmen. Nobody enters business to break even. They didn't then, just like they don't do now. They enter business to profit. No sick, dumb Africans is going to help me do anything, okay? but I want the best and the brightest. I own plantations in the Carolinas. You go to Sierra, you get me some of those rice farmers. They got a special technique for growing rice. We about to be the rice producing capital of the world here. This about to be a center. You go over there to that village. I'm a metal man. Okay, those people been working metals for generations. They know how to do it. I got to do some horseshoes and some stuff, rigs for my ships or whatever. Go get some of those metal workers for me. Understand this: when they went to Africa to get people, they went after the best and the brightest. They didn't go after no sick dumb Africans. They went after the best and the brightest, and that is what you got populating throughout the Americas as a result of the international slave trade, the Atlantic slave trade. It's because they sprinkled us in different places. Don't let them be successful in denying us our connection to each other and denying us our culture. Okay. In the United States, you have to remember we couldn't sing our songs. We couldn't dance our dances. We couldn't play our instrument. Do you realize that in the US, they outlawed drumming? Because they saw how drumming psyched us up, got us ready for battle, had us communicating with spirits, and had us doing whatever we needed to do to get strength and get confidence to open up a can on you fools out there trying to do us dirty.
Codes, the famous slave codes.
Yeah, yeah. So
planted from Barbados to South Carolina.
Yeah. Well, we are the same people, and like I told you before, Africans don't take kindly to being enslaved. So you're always going to find rebellious people wherever you find Africans. You're trying to do them wrong, you're gonna have a problem on your hand. They didn't share this information, but we were raising hell from day one until day forever when you try to do wrong by us.
Up until now.
By detaching us from our culture, we had to relearn some things, but they weren't ever able to do it completely because that's just not us. You're not going to let us. We are going to, if anything, we're going to graft what you have onto what we already have to make you think that, oh yeah, we're doing exercises. No, we're doing capoeira so we can open up a can on you guys. We're making you think we're doing exercises. Oh yeah, we're communicating with our drums. Yeah, these fools are coming your way. Look out. Yeah, we communicating that over our drums because that's what we do. Languages is what we do. In Africa, it's not a child will be completely fluent, literate in 3 languages. That's not crazy. Wherever they are, scholarship is a cultural attribute for African people all over the world. I mean, we respect education and scholarship. So you're gonna know wherever you are, you're gonna talk literate. Wherever mom's from, you're gonna learn to communicate with grandma. Whatever dad's from, you're gonna learn how to communicate with that side of the family, because you're gonna show enough respect and you're gonna do it. And it's unapologetically. You're gonna be fluent with 3 different languages. We have been a little bit detached from our culture as far as masses of we people, but you've always had your pockets of people who always kept in tune and things like that. So we have to reclaim it. In Ghana, specifically, they have a Sankofa concept, which is if you lost a connection to your culture, you can go back and claim it. All right. You can go back. If you're ignorant about where you're coming from and your culture, that's okay. You can get some knowledge within yourself. You can learn about that and reclaim it. And it's okay because we know what you've been through. You know, you had people who on the continent profited off of slavery. You know, that's something that different communities have admitted to and they've apologized for. So not only were they victims, but they were also perpetrators.
Well, it's not unique. Every culture has sellouts. You know?
Every culture has sellouts, that you can believe. But our cultural, the like I said, one of the ties, if you're connecting the dots throughout the continent, that's not the ones that we advance and we're proud of in our culture. It's just something that everybody has to deal with, the sellouts.
And those same people oppress their own people as well, many of them, you know, because the descendants of those who sold us into slavery, a lot of those are the ruling elites today, but they don't represent the people of Africa. You know, the people in the countries love us. They welcome us home.
Right.
You know what I mean? But there's all of these false narratives that Africans don't love the diaspora. They don't want to see you. And people who are perpetrating that, most of them have never stepped foot on the continent. When you go home, you will feel the love. Nobody has to tell you. You will feel the love. The people will embrace you. But again, you have ruling elites that to this day are doing deals that are against the interests of their people. So, but we have. This is why we have to tell our own stories, because that's not the full story. And the people have to return, come together. Now I have to ask you, the millions of Africans who were here before Columbus, what happened to them once the transatlantic trafficking happened? Because why didn't any of that culture survive? Or why do you think none of that culture survived? Or do you think it was?
It has survived. It has survived. It has survived. I don't think it was stamped out. I think you have African communities throughout the Americas, just like you have maroon communities in Jamaica. You have them in Brazil. You have them throughout the Central Americas. Even throughout the Americas that haven't. I mean, you have communities that don't even speak fluent Spanish in the Spanish Americas. They don't speak fluent.
That's what I'm talking about. People like the Olmecs. Ancient Africans that were here before the Asiatic, indigenous people.
You have to remember who writes the history. Okay, whoever wins the war, whatever's going to go down is going to be filtered through their reality, what's convenient for them. One thing I learned when I got to Howard, and I didn't learn it as a sentence, I learned it doing connecting dots and doing research. When you're a Black man or a woman that stands up on behalf of Black men and women, and I'm talking, let's just go back to the 15th century and bring it forward. Identify, isolate, and eliminate. That's what they try to do to you. Identify, isolate, and eliminate. They did it to Marcus. They did it to Malcolm. They did it to Lumumba. They did it to Sobukwe. I've been learning about Sobukwe of South Africa. Super scholarly dude. Lumumba, just incorruptible. These are African people that they're not going to go out and buy big hats and parade around the village because they got some Exxon oil money and they got a Mercedes and all this stuff. That's them. But everyone on the continent isn't a sellout, and we have to recognize these leaders are selling us short. People like Gaddafi, right? They made him into be like a babbling buffoon. Gaddafi, the things he did for Black people, Black Africans. I don't mean that class of leaders that looks like him. I'm talking about Black Africans as far as women. There were more women educated, more Black Africans in positions of power and stuff like that. He didn't go for that whole, these people are different and should be oppressed. He didn't go for that. That's why he out of there. Identify, isolate, and eliminate. That's what they do. But we always have greatness coming to the surface. That's just a part of our cultural foundation. That's where we come from. We are originators. We're not the copy. We're the blueprint. Okay. And so there are enough of us that recognize and can reclaim that and pass it on to keep us going and moving forward. I see our future as bright. I see our future as beautiful. I don't see it as easy, but it's never been easy. Okay. And we can't be the weak links in the chains. Our ancestors made it this far. They were able to pass on whatever they could pass on to us. And we must do likewise to the best of our ability, because that's our cultural tradition. That's what we're about.
Thanks. So if someone books you for a presentation, give us a idea of what they can expect if they book Harriet Tubman or if they book the Amistad experience. What can they expect? Kind of paint a picture.
Okay, well, with Harriet Tubman, you generally book an hour, and within that hour, I speak, I sing about a dozen songs, not in their entirety, but enough to weave the story together of her life and events, and like I said, people, legislation, this, that. And then for the last 15 minutes, I do an in-character Q&A, because people are always interested in what this revolutionary elder's take is, or what she would have to say. And as a edutainer, I give my perspective at that time through the likes of one Harriet Tubman. As far as the Amistad goes, when I do the Amistad, I focus on, like I said, the ties that bind us as Africans all over the continent of Africa and her diaspora, in terms of not only explaining to you that as we were sought after, as we were the best and the brightest that could be purchased, because that's what these businessmen wanted to do. They wanted to expand their businesses. They wanted to, pursue happiness, which means doing something that you can pass on to those that come after you, being able to pass on wealth and privilege and prestige and power and things like that. I talk about the continent. I talk about its connections. I talk about how I use artifacts. I don't sing as much when I do the Amistad, but I do use artifacts. And for example,
do you do characters during the Amistad?
I do. I don't necessarily do characters as the Amistad. When I do Harriet, I do. I talk about Frederick Douglass and some of his teachings. But when I do Amistad, for example, I will discuss the djembe. Now, the technology on the djembe drum hasn't changed much from 1839 to today. You have a drum that is carved from one branch or one trunk of a tree, or wherever you come from. It's one chunk of wood. You have animal skin stretched over it, cow, goat, antelope, same skins that are used today. The technology hasn't changed much, but what you need to recognize is this. Any place in West Africa, I'm not talking about the colonial divisions. If you look at those West African countries, they're shaped like from some type of resource they're shaped like rectangles, a lot of them, from the resource to the coast where they could cart off the resource, whether it's spices, whether it's gold, whether it's people, what have you. That is what they were about. However, drumming in West Africa, you can take a song like Funga Lafia. You try to do the research on that song, you're going to come up with a lot of different origin stories for the same song, okay? But understand this, you have similar cultural characteristics. Remember, I mentioned the Poro Society, the Sandy Society. It's called different things. It might be called the Khan. It might be called Yoruba Society. It might be Santeria Society. It might be Vodun Society, what have you. You have different groups of people that are organized that come from these regions that are able to communicate with each other, because a lot of the foundation stuff is the same in terms of being organized, in terms of letting a speaker speak. How come when you go to Ghana, you can be around 100 people, right? And someone's saying, I'll go, I may, I'll go. Are you hear me? I'm listening, I'm here and listening. And you can silence 100 people in a matter of minutes, because they recognize that when they hear this, that order is being called and they all need to be quiet. And no one has to stand up and yell, and no one has to have anything super powerful, because they might not have access to something super powerful, but they have the cultural sense to quiet a crowd. Listen up. Instructions are going to be given. You got to know what's going on around you. There are ties that combine us in terms of respect for elders, in terms of reverence to parents, and things like that. A lot of the times when we people would suffer a defeat in battle and things like that, a lot of times what the ancestors were or what the elders were suggesting we do wasn't carried out. Sometimes there'd be a rogue youth running things and would decide to sell us out or whatnot, against the wishes of the elders, against the knowledge and the expertise of those who have come before us. So we have to recognize our shortcomings. We have to reinforce and build them up so that they're no longer shortcomings. And we really have to promote our strengths, because our strengths is what has allowed us to keep and what will allow us to continue. And those are the things that must be taught and must be built upon.
How did you find the voice, the accent for Mama Harriet? Obviously, I don't think there's any recordings of her that exist that I'm familiar with. But you could correct me. Huh?
I'm from here. I'm from the United States. My mom's from Mississippi. Okay, born and raised in Vicksburg, Mississippi. So, unlike the woman from England who portrayed Harriet, I know what people from the South sound like. I have family members from people from the South. You know,
Yeah.
I interact, and from the time I was a small child, even dealing with people who had migrated from the South and now living in Connecticut, I know what they sound like. I know what people from Maryland sound like, which is a really wide, diverse sound you're gonna get. But I know what people from Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, Florida, you know, I know what that sounds like. I know what it looks like. I know what it feels like. I know some of the vernacular. I know the things that they call things and some of their practices that they do, because I was raised by them. So it's not difficult. It's not difficult for me.
Are you familiar? Are you familiar with the term FBA, Foundational Black American?
Oh yes, I am. I am.
It's a new term. We have a brethren here, FBA Convo. He said, Harriet Tubman is my lineage, not no Shaka Zulu. FBA, stay on code, don't let tethers in the cookout. So there's this kind of sentiment that I've seen online with the FBA's, moving toward delineation. They want to separate themselves from other black people. And it seems that, part of that is, putting down Pan-Africanism, putting down Africans whenever they get a chance. How do you feel about that? Because I definitely support African Americans identifying themselves, being proud of their culture, their legacy, fighting for their reparations. But I don't think that necessarily, and I do understand that a lot of immigrants come here to sell out and to undermine, but I think it's very dangerous. The attacks on Pan-African, it's like throwing out the baby with the bathwater to I. How does the I feel as someone born and raised here in America about this kind of sentiment where you have to big up Harriet Tubman, but you have to diss Shaka Zulu?
No, that's very short-sighted thinking. And if they actually took counsel of African elders and great thinkers and stuff like that, they would counsel against that. I would never give up a continent for an island. I would never give up a continent for a country that has from day one showed nothing but disdain for me. I would never give up a continent. Africa is too great and too grand over time for me to settle for less. That's it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And Harriet wouldn't be of support of that either, I don't believe, because she wasn't confined to this space and time. Even though she wasn't formally miseducated, she knew all about the divided states of America. And she knew that it's more to it than what they're trying to perpetrate on us in this particular time and space. That there was a before, and then that there'll be an after what we're going through, and we have to look at that brighter picture. Anything that divides us, we have to shun. We have to not feed into too much, because the stakes, the times are too dread and woe, and the stakes are too high for us to settle for less. And where we have the most potential for success is for us to unify wherever we are on the globe, because we're all over the globe. And we are a mighty people, and trying to divide us and weaken us is something that our enemies do to conquer us, and we can't fall for it.
I agree 1,000%. I think the isolation strategy is naive because there's no other race of people that takes that approach. Not all Indians are Hindu, but when they come into a space, they're united, as Indian,
Right.
for your Indian culture when they come into a foreign space. When the same with the Chinese, not all Chinese are Han Chinese, but
Right.
when they come into a space, they're Chinese,
They know
Europe,
what time of day it is.
the
And they
American,
long
yeah,
and far to
yeah,
trade.
the American, white American identity is pan-European. You know what I mean? So I think it's very naive to for anybody, whether that's a Jamaican, whether that's a Nigerian, Yoruba, because it's not just FBA. You have a movement in Nigeria where they want to separate and become the Yoruba nation. You have movements in Ethiopia, with the Oromo. So ethno nationalism is not anything new. So I would just advise my brothers here on this soil, yes, be proud of your lineage, defend it against those ignorant people who try to undermine the struggle that allowed them to be here and to prosper. I'm 100% with that. But once you start lick out against being Pan-African, to me, you've gone too far. You know what I mean? You missed the plot.
Well, you asked about,
Yeah.
excuse me, DejazmatchKwasi, you asked about the pre-Columbian Africans and what
Yes.
happened to them and all like that. And
Yes.
I can use my own family as an example in Mississippi, right? The way they look, regardless of other cultural attributes and stuff like that. I'm not making this up. Okay, this is what people who have demographic demographic data to support. Most people mate with people around them or in their community. Most people. So, for instance, my people in Mississippi, they look like the Black, indigenous, and the white people right from where they came from. Because guess what? That's what they are. That's where they're from. I mean, because you generally mate with people in a certain radius of you. Okay. Now, there may be outliers and there may be streams of immigration and big groups of people being transferred and things like that. But for the most part, you mate with wherever in a certain radius of where you start life. And you generally, and this is up until very recent time, you generally end life in a certain radius, generally speaking. So there's no pure people, pure African, pure this, pure that. No, it's certainly not in this hemisphere. I don't care where you come from in this hemisphere. For the most part, you're a product of everybody that's been through here, because that's just the way it is. I encourage people to be proud of where they're from, insofar as it doesn't dilute where we're all from. Okay. The oldest remains on the planet are African. And so I can always cling to my African ancestry. And you can't tell me I can't, because it's deeper than that, and it goes back longer than the transatlantic slave trade and longer than pre-Columbus. It goes back. So you're not going to deny me my ability to embrace the one continent that can sustain itself out of all the others on the planet, the one continent that has produced humanity, greatness that is to be proud of worldwide. There's nothing you could say or do to confuse me that I am not a child of the ancient Africans, because I am a child of the ancient Africans, and you must recognize that. And just because in recent times I'm here, it's like I was born and raised in New London, Connecticut, right? I don't like the cold, right? So just because I'm one generation from growing up in the South, because my parents grew up in the South where it's warm, you can't tell me just because I know how to survive the cold that, oh, I should like it or something. No, I don't. I'm just one generation from living in this type of environment. This isn't a friendly environment to me. I'm from people from the Sun. I'm from people from the South. So, Just because you a couple generations, over here doing this, don't mean you can dismiss all that has happened prior to those past few generations. So, what you should do is embrace this greatness and help it to thrive and grow, and learn about it, and learn how it's been in the crosshairs for a lot of people for a long time, and why. And you will see that it's worthy of preservation, and that it is worthy of investigation, so that we can learn how to sustain ourselves in our current struggles and build a brighter future for those who come after us.
Definitely. Give thanks. This was very educational. I know people have enjoyed this one in the comments. The hundreds of people that will watch this on the replay. Um, as you can see below, we have the Truth Seeker website. Make sure you go to her website. Support Lion Pride. We want to circulate the Rastafari Pan African dollar. You can book our beloved Queen Mother for your event. I'm sure she will give you a virtual price as well. If for the international people who may not be able to afford to fly her out first class, but you need to get your money together so you can do that. But
Can I
until,
say something?
yeah, go ahead.
I understand that Black History Month in England takes place in October, and I
Okay.
have a goal of booking myself up in England for Black History Month in October, so that as a woman who comes from a humble background and is able to accomplish a lot, there are people now more than ever that are interested in the Harriet Tubman story. How was she able to do this? In her day, she had a letter from the Queen of England inviting her. Who is this little woman in this colony running stuff, able to out finesse all these hostilities around her? Who is she? I want to meet her. So she actually had an invitation. And I'm not trying to, because I am a Pan African, I can go all over the world and assert uh, my claim to wanting to uplift and advance African people wherever they are on the planet. So because Black History Month is in October in England, that's a good place for me to be in England, so I can spread the knowledge and let people know. And again, connect the dots with people throughout the diaspora. Uh, but if your audience can educate me and inform me where else in what months Black history is honored, I would love to go there. I would love to go to those places. And always, wherever I go, I have been invited to a couple different places, I always try to look at the independent schools or look at some of the other organizations that couldn't afford to have me. I try to bless them with my strength, with my knowledge, with my presence as well. Just because you can't afford to have me there, well, yeah, get me some organizations that can afford to have me there. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to put the work in with we people that can't afford to have me there. I'm not going to shortchange them, because that the ancestor that I embody wouldn't appreciate that, because she would be with the group of people that couldn't afford or didn't have enough sense to even want to afford to
Yes.
get this knowledge. So I'm very much interested in the community, educating me and, inviting me to let my light shine and to learn amongst wherever two or more are gathered, and they're talking about truth and right, about respect and honoring the Most High and our honorable ancestors, and uplifting we people with our base is Africa unapologetically. Then I'm interested.
Give thanks. And I love this from our beloved Queen Mother Moses. Unity does not require putting any other down. Just big up the melanated born in the USA and putting down, putting down other melanated people. I agree 1,000%. Let's amplify the positive, because that is, the negative, yes, gets the algorithm going, but the positive builds capacity. When we highlight the positive, we build our capacity for great works. Where is the link, Roots? Look on the bottom of your screen. You see that scrolling? That's the website. Just put it into your URL. You'll get all of her information. Also, you can send her an email directly and book her for your next event. I'm sure, as I said, if you have a virtual event, she can give you a virtual price. Just reach out, make an offer, negotiate the terms, and let's circulate the Rastafari Pan African dollar. This is all about us supporting each other. As I said, I've known this Queen Mother coming on to 30 years. I think 28 will be 30 years since I met this sister. So long time. It's an honor to host you on this platform, to see that you have maintained the struggle. We always honor our great Rasai Biju, great elder and ancestor. And again, it's just a great honor to have you. And we're going to have you up forward again, maybe in character next time, so we can get a little sample of Mama Harriet as well. But I want to give you an opportunity to say some final words to the global Rastafari and Pan-African family.
Enough respect, DejazmatchKwasi. I was always impressed with your ability to not only theorize, but to actually put works in action, to actually demonstrate a respect for sistren, to actually demonstrate a respect for elders, to actually roll up your sleeves and get works done, all the while hitting the books. Because you can't become a lawyer anywhere if you don't hit the books, if you don't have whatever it takes to work hard and get the knowledge that you need to do and communicate it, both in written form, both in verbal form, then you're not going to be successful. And you're a tremendous success in our community. It's indeed a privilege and an honor to become on this format. I reached out to you today, and you were visiting with our honorable elder, the poet laureate of this DMV area, as far as Rastafari is concerned, as far as Pan-Africanism is concerned. Nana Fariker Bahane, she's been, challenged with health challenges and whatnot, but she's as fiery as ever. She has been a pillar in the community in terms of not just talking the talk, but walking the walk, doing the things, working with the youth, educating the youth, being supportive, helping the brothers to see, helping the brothers to understand, showing example to the sistrens of how they should not carry themselves or how they need to carry themselves and things like that, so that we can be strong and we can be reliable, so we can rely on each other to survive. That was a saying that my husband, the late Adwoa Asante, that was one of his sayings. It's all about roots, and roots means rely on ourselves to survive. We have what it takes to. I don't want to hang anywhere, so don't ever tell me to hang in there, because I don't want to hang anywhere. I want to thrive. Okay, I want to advance. I want to achieve. I want to, like I said, give the youth something more to inherit than the wind. You embody all of those things, DejazmatKwasi, and I watched you be a young single man to become a young head of family and to become a voice and platform for we people throughout the world. Enough respect. Just let me know how I can continue to be of service, and I like to back up what I say monetarily and in every other way, shape, or form. So I will be a platform member, card carrying. I appreciate this opportunity to speak, and you can always count on me to roll up my sleeves and do what we need to do, not just under the lights and camera action, but rolling up my sleeves and doing the work that we have to do in order to thrive and be successful in this time, not in another life. So we can party with the Most High and somewhere else in another life, but in these times, in this real time, that's about the growth and development I'm about.
Give thanks. And I want to let the eye know that Nana Faraika always shares her gratitude. The eye is one of the sisters who is most consistent in terms of visiting with Nana Faraika, spending time, making sure she's Irish. So, she shares that with I consistently. So I want to thank the eye. And the eye does it quietly without any hope of remuneration or adulation. The eye is there. So I really give thanks. And it means a lot to hear that from the eye, because the eye know I from before I had a queen, as the eye says, a single brethren. So you've seen my evolution, my glow up, so to speak, as the young people would say. So give thanks for your kind words. And we're just getting started. And I hope that I know that this is your platform now. So, feel free. We're going to have the eye return maybe closer to Black History Month again, so that people can see maybe a little sample of Mama Harriet, or maybe we can do a Q&A as Mama Harriet and have the audience members ask some questions as well, so people can just get a feel of how dynamic and how powerful the presentation is. And also, again, when I bring guests here, family, it's not for us to just reason, it's also for the economic aspect. So please reach out, book. Is there any way that people can just send you a contribution if they don't, if they just want to send you some dollars?
I do have a Cash App. It's Adwoa Asante Home is my
Okay.
Cash App. Adwoa Asante Home, like my last name.
Yeah, text it to me and I'll include it in the description for this video.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you want to just give a contribution, my dream, and we'll end with this. My dream, everybody knows I have 58,500 followers. My dream is to have 50,000 members of the Lion Pride give $10 to our guests, and to that guest to be able to leave this platform with $500,000 in their bank account. That's my dream. I might have to wait till I get to 1 million subscribers to be able to get 50,000 people to give $10. But I'm going to keep on saying it until it happens. So that's my dream. The audience, the item are the only ones who can make this happen. So I want you to start with Mama Adwoa. We're going to put the Cash App in the description. Send her $10, send her $20, send her $50. If you have 10,000, send it too. But let's get in the habit when we bring guests on this platform of doing that capital infusion. This is the only way we're going to be able to build rapidly on the scale that we need to build. If we wait for the big chunk of money to come, it will never come. But if we use the principle of collective security as taught by His Imperial Majesty, we can overcome every obstacle, particularly the financial ones. So 50,000 people working in one accord is a force, is to be reckoned with. And we have that here. We just need to activate it. Again, whatever you can give, if it's $5, if it's $1, let's start by just transferring capital, getting the habit of transferring capital. It doesn't take a lot of an individual, but together we can make differences in people's lives. We can actually change people's lives here on the platform every time we have a guest. And I'm only bringing guests that are doing the work, who are putting their shoulder to the wheel for our people. So that's my dream. I hope that we can accomplish it. Thank you once again for blessing our platform. Do remember, tomorrow we have a time change. We are going to South Africa tomorrow. We're interviewing Field Marshal Tau Tau Haram Nubia, controversial Rastafari brethren. We're going to talk about his interpretation. He preaches the divinity of His Majesty without looking at the Bible. We're going to talk about monogamy versus polygamy. We're going to talk about all of the different African perspectives that have been rising on the continent. South Africa, they say, has the most Rastafari on the planet, but they're going their own way. They're not following Rastafari as it's come from the West. And the brethren that we're interviewing tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern Time is one of the architects of the new faculty of interpretation coming out of South Africa, the founder of the Melchizedek Order. And we're going to hear the whole history. We're going to go deep with Field Marshal Tau tomorrow at 12 p.m. Live. It's going to be live. So make sure you tune in, set your alarm. Tomorrow's also the Sosa Crew event, the School of Sacrament for Rastafari University. They're having their 5-year anniversary event at 4 p.m. So tomorrow is a packed Rastafari day. You know what I mean? Tune in, become part of the change, and remember that I and I have a lot of work to do. I and I have a lot of love to give, but we won't stop. Why? Because the time has come for the lions to tell our own story. And this is the lion's voice.
Greetings, Rastafari, Hail Emperor the King Selassie the First, the Perfect Balance Empress Menin. This is first man for Rastafari Indigenous Village, recognizing, accepting, promoting Lion Voice. Yes, the voice of Rastafari, speaking about Rastafari, educating Rastafari, preserving, protecting Rastafari. Give thanks.
Aye, Rastafari, mighty.
The fittest of the fittest shall survive. My people, open your eyes. Wake up. Blessed love, this is Queen Omega, representing for all lions and lionesses. With the lion's voice, we come to tell our story. Rastafari, live it. Hey, the lion's voice, Rastafari.
Blessed love, this is Rashila representing for the Lion's Voice. Seeing? Yeah, man. Keep it locked right there, sir. On to Zion we go. Lion voice don't move slow, no. Rastafari rules and reigns, and we're going where the blessings flow. Keep it locked right there, sir. Seeing? Rashila said that. Lion's Voice.
I'm Nana Farika. The time has come for the lioness to tell her story from her viewpoint and tell the world who Queen Omega is. This is the lion's voice.
Greetings, this is Junior Martin of Bob Marley and the Wailers. The time has come for the lion to tell its story. And we have here the lion voice. So listen in and get nourishment for the stomach and for the head cup. Jah, Rastafari.
Give thanks,
Give thanks and praise every time.
Great honor, great honor.
What are you waiting for? Come together, calling from near and far. Know who you are. What are you waiting for? Rally up, it takes the dust. What are you waiting for? Ancestors paved the way for us. Yes, I am Ketis Oyonde, asking, what are you waiting for to come together? The time has come for the lions to tell our own story. This is the lion's voice.
It's AWTITUDE representing for Lion's Voice. Yes, massive. This is the time for I and I, the lion them to tell I and I story, our story. Yes? And we reign and rule like this. Reign and rule, yeah. Selassie, I reign and rule. You can't take the lion vibes, people. If you no fool, cause we know Selassie reign and rule. Reign and rule. Selassie, I reign and rule. Queen Omega drop them in the fire, pull from them, no Queen Omega, she reign and rule. Royal Kushite, ancient essence, Emperor Selassie in a majestical presence, flash of all sevens, projecting through I events. We sing a song for the king, we bring joy and blessing and overstanding, yeah. We hear Jah aided. Rain and rule, yeah. Selassie, rain and rule. Yes, I Lion vibes, Selassie, rain and rule. Attitude say that. Boondocks, Black Organization of Global Diplomats optimizing expressions to the world. Till the world, till the end.
Well, Lion Voice, tell them that's the people first choice. Lion Voice, make the lioness them feel nice. Lion Voice, with the lion cubs we sacrifice. Lion Voice, got to show the people them the life. Lion Voice.